Welcome back to the Real News Network. I'm your host, Jessica Devereaux, coming to you from Baltimore. We're picking up our conversation about French Islamophobia with our guest, Yasser Louati. He's a spokesperson for the Collective Against Islamophobia, and he joins us now from France. Thanks again, Yasser, for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
So, Yasser, France has the largest population of Muslims in Europe, with about 4.7 million Muslims. First of all, just break down for us, why is there such a large population of Muslims in France in the first place?
This goes back to France's colonial past. We shouldn't forget that France colonized most of Africa, including North Africa, which is inhabited by Arabs and Muslims, and sub-Saharan countries like Senegal, Mali, etc. So after France supposedly gave them independence, which I don't believe, as a matter of fact, the people from these countries were shipped to contribute to the economic effort of rebuilding France after the Second World War. So yes, you are definitely right. France is home to the biggest Muslim minority in Europe.
Okay, and as you were saying, building up France, how so?
Because France was devastated after the Second World War, and there wasn't enough people to help rebuild the country. So what happened is that country made some agreements to bring people to France through various waves. But what happened is that during the 60s and 70s, by the mid 70s, French corporations or French companies had a choice: either invest in new machines or bring in cheap labor. They went for the second option, and that's why you have lots of Muslims who came from Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia, Mali, Senegal, etc.
And these corporations we're talking about, a lot of car manufacturers, is that right?
Yes, car manufacturers, industry companies, etc. And of course, they were not paid as much as the rest of the white population. They were not given the same rights as the remaining of the workers. As a matter of fact, when they went on strike during the 1980s, to tell you how ignorant our elite was and still is, they called those strikes by Muslim workers holy strikes, being remotely controlled by Iran. This is how crazy. And those people are from North Africa.
Got you. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about the history. I want to specifically talk about how French citizenship works, because in your piece you really lay out that there was a policy, and it was the law of the land for quite some time, that if you're born in France, you're automatically considered to be a French citizen. But that changes, right, Yasser?
Yes, because in the 1980s, we had, pressure groups led by various members of parliament saying that in order to keep, French purity, we have to repeal the law of the land, meaning that when you are born in France, you are automatically granted French citizenship. But this intellectual mechanism was the same one being applied against Jews in the early 20th century, saying that they should not be automatically granted French citizenship. And the debate started in the late 80s and ended by 1998. And it was sparked again after the Paris attacks in November, and thanks to a great mobilization by civil society, including our organization, the government backed down and repealed the project about repealing the law of the land.
So what's been the effect of that sort of policy shift?
Well, you basically tell people you have two kinds of citizenships. You have the pure one, the number one, the A level, the A list, and then you have the rest of them, meaning that you are only a citizen on your passport or your ID card. That's it. It means that you don't have equal rights, you should not expect equal treatment, you shouldn't have access to the same level of representation in our institutions, etc. And racism in France is profoundly structural. We should not forget that France greatly benefited from slavery, from colonization, and the domination of foreign peoples. So when those peoples are born here in France, they are not looked at as equal citizens, they are looked at as second-class citizens.
Continuing on that line about the structural racism in France, in your piece you make mention of how anti-headscarf policies sort of have been the economic death sentence for veiled women, especially since they're not able to expand legal their legal challenges to religious discrimination and things of that nature. So can you just explain how the law is hurting veiled women?
First, we have, yes, indeed, Muslim women who are in a situation of social death sentence. We shouldn't forget that 80% of Islamophobia victims are women. Discrimination, hate speech, and physical violence. Then you have a set of laws targeting specifically Muslim women. The 2004 law against the headscarf, the 2009 law against the full veil scarf. We had the government pressuring courts to reverse their decisions to grant rights to Muslim women. We constantly speak about Muslim women as the specific enemy of the French Republic, its values and its tradition. Even after the Paris terrorist attacks, the headscarf was again mentioned, and now there are ongoing debates about banning the headscarf in public space, public transportation, and now universities. And when you have a prime minister, the current one, Manuel Valls, who says that the paramount fight for the French Republic is to target the Muslim headscarf. And he said it again 2 days ago, that unless we win the ideological battle, then we will have to turn to, quote, totalitarian and authoritarian measures. That's how far they are willing to go against Muslim women who decide to wear the headscarf. So Muslim women don't have much choice but to fight for their rights. But even when they do, they are not given platform to speak for themselves. We always hear someone who speaks on their behalf, or we get what we call, minority informants or native informants to speak on behalf of Muslims and tell the elite what they want to hear. And this happened again with this episode with the Minister of Women's Rights, when she used the French word nègre. Various Muslim women wrote columns, recorded videos, posted them all online, and nobody gave them the microphone to speak for themselves.
So Yasser, at the end of the day, what is the solution? We've identified the problems within the law, we've identified the structural racism, but what specific policies could France enact if they really want to heal this relationship with the Muslim community?
Again, it's a struggle for minorities to tackle Islamophobia first and take their destiny into their own hands, and then put this struggle into a bigger struggle for social justice. We shouldn't forget that the demonization of Muslims, of course, is of great harm for Muslims themselves, but is also of great harm for the wider society. And that applies for France, the UK, or even the US. You build an enemy within, you demonize a specific category of your population in order to justify otherwise unacceptable laws. For example, the Patriot Act in the US, we used Muslims as the enemy, and then we know where that led. But again, it is very important for minorities to challenge the government and hold it responsible. What our organization is doing is that first assist victims both legally and psychologically, work with institutions, and then coordinate our struggle both at the European and international level. Because the injustices we are facing here in France are the exact same ones being faced throughout Europe and North America. So it's a great struggle. It requires lots of resources, but we have no other choice but to push forward.
All right, Yasser Louati, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on the Real News Network.